You tell yourself it's just one more time, one more episode, one more bite, one more drink, one more scroll, and for a moment, it works. The pleasure numbs you, drowns out the silence, makes you forget. But then it fades. And what comes next? That familiar emptiness, that voice in the back of your mind whispering, "Why do I keep doing this?" You've felt it before, haven't you? That strange sadness after indulging in something you thought would make you happy. And yet, despite knowing how it ends, you always come back. Carl Jung understood this cycle better than anyone. He believed that what we call pleasure is often nothing more than an unconscious escape, a way to avoid facing something hidden within us. And that's the real trap. Because the more we chase pleasure, the more it controls us. And the more it controls us, the further we drift from what we truly need. So ask yourself, if pleasure is supposed to make you happy, why does it always leave you wanting more? Your mind is not designed to be satisfied. Carl Jung believed that most of our actions are driven by unconscious forces we barely understand. And one of the most powerful of these forces is desire. A relentless, never-ending hunger for more. At first, pleasure feels good. It gives us a moment of relief, a break from discomfort. But the moment it fades, something else kicks in, the craving for the next dose. This isn't just psychological, it's biological. Your brain operates on a reward system controlled by dopamine. The first time you experience pleasure, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the behavior. But over time, that same amount of pleasure isn't enough. You need more. A stronger hit, a greater escape. That's why the excitement of a new relationship fades. That's why the first bite of cake is amazing, but the second is just okay. That's why scrolling on your phone never feels like enough. The more we feed pleasure, the more we weaken its effect. This is what scientists call the hedonic treadmill, the idea that no matter how much pleasure you experience, your brain adapts and demands more to feel the same high. But here's where Jung takes it further. He believed that this hunger for more isn't just about pleasure, it's about what we're avoiding. Because deep down, the real question isn't, why do I always want more? It's, what am I trying to escape? Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Think about that for a moment. Why do you reach for your phone the second you're alone? Why do you eat when you're not hungry? Why do you stay in relationships that don't fulfill you just to avoid being alone? The truth is, most of what we call pleasure isn't about joy at all. It's about distraction, a way to escape the thoughts and feelings we don't want to confront. Jung believed that everything we suppress, our fears, our loneliness, our past wounds, doesn't just disappear. It sinks into what he called the shadow, the hidden part of our psyche that holds everything we refuse to acknowledge. And here's the dangerous part: what you don't face controls you. If you push away your loneliness, it disguises itself as an addiction to social media. If you suppress your anger, it resurfaces in self-sabotage. If you ignore your emptiness, you drown it in temporary highs, alcohol, shopping, meaningless relationships. Jung saw this cycle clearly. The more we run from our shadow, the more we become its prisoner. And so we keep consuming, keep chasing, keep numbing, because stopping would mean facing ourselves. But what if facing yourself is exactly what you need? Because the real problem was never pleasure itself. The real problem is what happens when the pleasure fades, when there's nothing left to distract you from the silence. You've tried to stop before. You've told yourself, this is the last time. You felt that moment of clarity, that motivation to change. But then you slip, and suddenly you're back where you started. Why does this happen? Carl Jung believed that when we repress something, it doesn't disappear. It finds another way to control us. And pleasure, at its core, is one of the most deceptive traps. Because, unlike pain, pleasure never feels like a problem. It convinces you that you're in control, that you're choosing this. But are you? If you were truly in control, why does the craving always return? Why does one drink turn into 5? Why does a 5-minute break on your phone turn into an hour? Why does a casual indulgence feel more like a compulsion? The uncomfortable truth is, the more we chase pleasure, the less power we have over it. Jung observed that modern society feeds on this cycle. We are kept distracted, overstimulated, and chasing the next high, too busy to ask deeper questions. Because if you stop, if you sit in the silence, if you let yourself feel whatever is underneath, you might discover that what you're really searching for isn't pleasure at all. It's something deeper, something real, something that no quick fix will ever satisfy. And the longer you ignore it, the stronger the craving becomes. If you truly want to break free, you need to understand one thing. You don't escape the pleasure trap by resisting it. You escape it by understanding it. Carl Jung didn't believe in simply suppressing desires. He believed in making the unconscious conscious. So instead of asking, how do I stop this habit? Ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Because it's never just about the pleasure itself, that extra drink. It's not just about the alcohol, it's about numbing something inside, that endless scrolling. It's not about entertainment, it's about avoiding stillness, that impulsive spending. It's not about things, it's about filling an emotional gap. The real problem isn't pleasure, it's the way we use it to avoid something deeper. So how do you break the cycle? Jung's work offers 3 essential steps. Step 1. Observe the pattern without judgment. The next time you feel the craving, stop. Instead of indulging automatically, observe what's happening inside you. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right before I reach for this? Step 2. Stop fighting the desire. Listen to it. Instead, resisting only makes the craving stronger. Instead of fighting it, sit with it. Let the discomfort surface. Jung believed that what we suppress controls us, but what we bring into awareness, we can understand. Step 3. Find what you've been avoiding. If you removed the pleasure, what would be left? Fear, loneliness, insecurity. This is your real work, not stopping the habit, but addressing what's underneath. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is how you reclaim your power, not by forcing yourself to stop seeking pleasure, but by no longer needing it to escape yourself. Most people think freedom means having more pleasure, more choices, more indulgence. But real freedom, it's when you no longer need those things to feel whole. Carl Jung believed that true liberation doesn't come from removing desires, but from no longer being controlled by them. Think about it. When was the last time you felt fully content without needing something external to keep you occupied, without checking your phone, without a distraction, without seeking validation? That's the test, because the moment you stop chasing pleasure to escape yourself, something changes. The cravings lose their grip, the compulsions feel unnecessary. The silence no longer feels empty, it feels peaceful. This doesn't mean you'll never enjoy pleasure again. It means pleasure stops owning you. Jung once said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. When you no longer resist your own mind, you stop being a prisoner of it. That's when pleasure stops being a trap and finally becomes what it was meant to be. A choice, not a compulsion. Most people will hear this and do nothing. They'll keep chasing the next hit, the next thrill, the next distraction, telling themselves they're in control even when they know deep down they're not. But you're different. Because now you see the cycle for what it is. You understand that the pleasure trap isn't about what you do, it's about what you're avoiding. So the real question isn't, how do I stop? It's what have I been running from? Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The moment you face what's inside, without running, without numbing, without distraction, that's when the cycle breaks. That's when you take back control. So now ask yourself, if there was no pleasure left to distract you, who would you be?